So before we get into things, before I even introduce the program, I'll introduce myself a little bit and share where I am located. So my name's Rachel Levy. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the director of the Spur Change program. And it is a deep pleasure to be with you today, working with colleagues from not just coast to coast to coast, which is where our project is, the Spur Change project, but actually around the world. This is a really special moment, actually, and a culmination of a project and a partnership that started many moons ago. And so I am joining with deep gratitude for those reasons, but also because I'm joining you from the lands of the Songhees and Esquimalt nations of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, which is also known as Victoria. So I'm originally from Tiohtià:ke, which is known by the colonial name of Montreal. But the Spur Change project actually is all across all across Turtle Island and all around the world because of our colleagues, our international counterparts everywhere. And so I just want to really appreciate that I get to be here with you from this land and get to be grounded in the protocol and understanding of where I get to be in this moment. Also want to really appreciate as well that maybe all of you have not had a chance to learn a little bit about where you're based. If you want to follow the protocol of where you're from or where you're based right now, you can always check out in the chat below. We've got a special link that you can access where you can actually look at where you are situated. If it's something that you would like to add or share, if that's a part of your journey, that would be fantastic. We'd love to learn about where you are joining us from in the chat. Also want to just take a moment to appreciate that we've got some fantastic folks helping us out. We've got Nico and John from the Spur Change team who are also helping out with technical questions and supporting us throughout this. So if you have any questions, direct questions about how to access information, or you're not sure about how to access the interpretation or any other technical questions, you can just direct message Nico Video English. And if he's busy doing something else, you can always write to John, who's Video Française. So thank you so much, everybody. Maybe we'll go to the next slide as well, please, Nico. Thank you so much. So to let you know a little bit about the Spur Change program. So we are a 5-year initiative funded by Global Affairs Canada. We're aiming to increase the effectiveness of Canadian small and medium organizations, lovingly known as SMOs. The Spur Change offers many learning and knowledge sharing opportunities, some of which are synchronous, some of which are asynchronous. One of the main outcomes of the program is to increase the engagement of Canadian SMOs in international development and to increase the engagement of Canadians, particularly youth, as Canadian citizens. And I would be remiss to not mention the incredible impact of working with colleagues around the world, but also the important work of our implementing partners of the Intercouncil Network of Regional Councils for International Cooperation. It is a real pleasure to be able to work with all of them from coast to coast to coast and the work that they have done to bring this project to the fore. And we're actually a project that is technically based at the Alberta Council for Global Cooperation. And so we want to extend some gratitude as well to our implementing partners. Perhaps to the next slide as well. Thanks so much. So as you entered this space, you got a reminder that this webinar will be recorded. And I've been seeing a couple of notes in the chat as well that asking about the webinar recording. Don't worry, you'll get this. Thank you so much for asking about this. We want to make sure that it's as accessible as possible. So the webinar will be recorded in English and in French and made available later through an email that we'll be sending to our participants, so everybody who registered. And we will also be putting it on our YouTube channel and also on the Spur Change resource library. An important thing is because this is interpreted, we really want to make sure this is as accessible as possible for everyone. It really helps our interpreters to keep our microphones muted so that way we don't have other sounds that are coming in. And if it does come to a time where you feel able to share and speak up in our question and answer portion, we do want to make sure that we're all always having just one microphone on at a time. It really helps our interpretation. So if you do want to speak in our Q&A portion, we're going to ask that you please use the raise your hand function. It's just at the bottom of the screen. You can drag your cursor over and you'll see there's a little thing that says raise hand. And then unfortunately, it just says raise hand in English. And then as well, we do want to encourage participation. If there's going to be a large section where you're going to be able to ask questions of a few of the folks who have actively participated in the work of Change the Game Academy as well. So if you would like to add your questions and you don't want to speak up orally, that's okay. You can always put your questions in the chat or add any comments, and we will do our best to address those in the moment. And if we don't get to them all, we will email you back afterwards, and we'll try to remain accessible as well. Maybe the next slide, please. So we want to share a little bit about our incredible colleagues, and I'm going to pass it over to her in just a moment. So before I actually go into anything, and Esther will be able to introduce herself, I just want to really appreciate something extraordinary that happened, where our team was looking at building a course on fundraising and resource mobilization. So many moons ago, at the very outset of this project, 4 years ago, there was an assessment done on what are the deep needs of our small and medium-sized organizations across Canada. And so one of the key issues that came up for our sector and our colleagues was that we needed help in resource mobilization. And one of our goals, of course, as Spur Change, was to create training and programming that was really related deeply through evidence-based research on the needs of SMOs. And so when we were able to start exploring what kind of resources were out there, we came across an extraordinary resource of Change the Game Academy that runs 2 courses on resource mobilization and actually around advocacy and local support, and really getting community involvement and community-centered work at to be at the center of how organizations work. When we looked at this content, we were so thrilled that this existed in the world, but we weren't sure if there was a way for us to replicate it, possibly for our SMOs. So wait a minute, we don't need to replicate it. Let's just reach out and see if maybe we could access this, and maybe we could actually create a combined course. And we were so lucky because we got to meet Esther and Karine, who Karine unfortunately could not join us today, but to meet these extraordinary colleagues at Wilde Gansen, who were so warm and so generous and so kind, and created a beautiful partnership where we were able to access their content, build off of their content, create Canadian context content, and actually deeply answer the needs of our community while not reinventing the wheel, and also really centering the experience of international CSOs and really thinking differently about how we can collaborate all around the world, and how we actually all truly face very similar challenges when it comes to resource mobilization. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Change the Game Academy, to Wilde Gansen, but particularly to Karine and Esther for your kindness and being able to work together throughout this time. It's been extraordinary. And so that whole collaboration came together to be our Building Equity Resource Mobilization for Impact training. And so we're so grateful, because we went through all 3 online units, which are still accessible. If you would like to check them out on our resource library, you can go and check out those units. And we just finished our unit 4, which were in-person workshops. We were able to provide much deeper support on creating targeted fundraising plans for all of the SMOs who were able to attend. We also have other follow-ups as well. But just so you know, our content, like Change the Game Academy's content, continues to live online. So if you want to check it out and access it, go on over to the resource library. And again, we just want to say thank you so much to Change the Game Academy and to Esther and Karine for all of the amazing work. On that note, I'm going to pass it over to Esther. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for that very kind introduction. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here today with all of you. I'm here together with Malo and Françoise, whom we will introduce later. My name is Esther, and I work for Wilde Gansen Foundation, which is a Dutch foundation And we're very excited to share about one of our favorite subjects, which is raising resources, and specifically raising resources locally by domestic organizations in low and middle income countries. And I'd like to share a little bit about our journey in this subject, what we've learned over the past years, and then hand over to Malo and Françoise to share about their experiences in Burkina Faso. So maybe a bit of context. We are a Dutch foundation. We were set up 65 years ago. I think we're one of the oldest Dutch foundations working in international solidarity. And we were set up to raise funds among Dutch individuals, Dutch citizens, for global solidarity. And we used, over the past decades, we used those resources to support very tangible, small-scale projects initiated by communities, by community-based organizations, in partnership with Dutch small and medium-sized organizations. So very similar organizations to yours, mostly voluntary organizations. And we support that partnership between those Dutch organizations and their international counterparts in low and middle income countries. And as I said, for many decades, we only funded projects, very specific, tangible projects. And we still do that, but it was about 15 years ago that we started to ask ourselves some really difficult questions. And we said, if we only continue funding projects, are we really making ourselves redundant? Are we really supporting our partners in becoming strong, sustainable, independent organizations that can carry on their work beyond our partnership? Or are we keeping them on maybe a cycle, going from project to project, having to fundraise for every idea that comes up? And we also saw so many developments, the funding from going from north to south, very much under pressure, the struggles of smaller organizations to access foreign funding, with increased professionalization that really makes it harder for organizations, those who are closest to communities, those who know the context so well, to access those funds. So with that DNA of fundraising in the Netherlands, we started to think of, would this be possible in other contexts as well? And so we started to promote domestic resource mobilization through coaching, training, but also through a match funding scheme. And when we started out, we sort of assumed, okay, it's probably going to be easy in places like Mumbai and Nairobi, where there's a middle class and where there's corporates that can contribute to social change. But actually, it turned out, what we learned, that in communities, in those places where people are very close to the change, where people have a stake in the work of an organization than themselves, it was much easier to mobilize people to contribute their resources and invest, become participants in it, not just be beneficiaries, but be agents of change, be active participants in the change process. And that was quite eye-opening to us. And it may be small amounts that people are contributing, but it's not only about the amounts, it's also an expression of the importance of the work. It's an expression of trust in the organization. So it's much more, it's not only about monetary value. It can also be other resources. People have ideas, they have time, networks, that they can invest, that they can contribute to an organization. And I remember one particular example from Kenya, where actually the Dutch partner said, no, fundraising will not be possible in this rural context. People don't have resources, it will not work. But the Kenyan organization was determined to try it, and they organized an auction. And people donated their goats for the auction. So they did not come with money, but they came with goats. And so they wanted to sell the goats to various people that they invited. But actually what happened was that some of the people who contributed a goat, they bought back their own goat. And so they were willing to actually invest with cash also in the initiative. And I think that's the second thing I'd like to highlight on what we've learned, that it's raising resources locally is not just about financial sustainability. It's not only about the money. It's also about inviting people to join you. So it changes the relation between an organization and a community. It's inviting people to participate, but it also means an organization must be accountable to the community on how they utilize the resources. It's about ownership. It's not working donor driven, but it's allowing you to set your own priorities, your own ideas, put that front and center, and then mobilize resources from various sources to make that change happen. And it's about legitimacy. If you have this local constituency, people supporting your cause, standing up and contributing to your work, you're much more credible, you're much more legitimate as an organization, and especially in countries where civic space is under pressure and governments may not be very susceptible to the work of civil society organizations. It's very important to show that you're a legitimate organization. You're not a foreign agent, you're not driven by foreign agendas, but you're actually representing the interest of a community. So it's very important to build that support base, build that credibility, not only for financial reasons, but really to strengthen your institutional sustainability of your organization. And yeah, we've seen this happening in practice. We've been amazed about what is possible. And based on the learnings over all those years, we've developed Change the Game Academy that Rachel referred to. It's a training and coaching program. And we actually we're so motivated to share learnings. And I say we, it's not just Wilde Gansen Foundation. There were partners involved from the very start, from Kenya, India, and Brazil. And today we are a network of partners from 15 countries. But it's been co-created with experience from low and middle income countries. And we saw that need, that resources, learning resources on local fundraising are not so accessible to many civil society organizations, mainly available in English, but they were paid for. So you had to purchase good learning materials or a good training course. And this is something that we wanted to change with Change the Game Academy. And so today we have an online platform that offers learning in 6 languages and also face-to-face classroom courses and coaching trajectories in 15 countries across the globe. And one of those countries is Burkina Faso. And I'm very happy that today Malo Debe is with us. He's one of the trainers in Burkina Faso. And my colleague Corinne conducted an interview with Malo, which we are going to show you. And afterwards, there will also be the opportunity to ask Malo questions. And Rachel, I think here it's easier if you explain the 2 video options.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought we were doing the poll first, but
oh, sorry,
yeah,
I forgot about it. Yeah.
No problem at all. Yeah, would you like to
it.
launch the poll?
Yes.
No problem. Awesome.
Yeah, so before we go into this, which country ranks highest in terms of philanthropic citizens? So in which country do you think people are most generous? Is that Canada, Indonesia, Kenya, the Netherlands, or the US? Okay, still answers coming in. Yeah, I think we can show the answers. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so you see a very mixed picture. I think with most people voting for the US, with Netherlands and Canada in a good second place, the correct answer is actually Indonesia. And this is a World Giving Index, which is done by the Charities Aid Foundations on an annual basis that tracks philanthropic giving in terms of both giving resources, giving time, so do voluntary work, and helping a stranger. And this is measured in many countries across the globe. And actually, Indonesia is in the first place, and Kenya second in the 2022 index. Now, it's quite interesting because in 2018, 4 out of the top 10 countries were lower middle income countries. But during the pandemic, that's really increased that number. And I think, if I'm correct, this year it's even 8 out of the 10 top 10 countries that are low and middle income countries. And so here you see that giving is not just, it's not something for rich people to do. It's something that everybody can do. Nobody is too poor to give. No, everybody can give of their resources, of their time. And I think there's many practices of indigenous solidarity, sometimes even rituals. Sometimes they have a name in many parts of the world where people are very generous and they support one another. And it may be less common to give to organizations, but there's a high level of interpersonal solidarity where people give and share. And I see the second question was launched as well. I find fundraising, and I think we have a very clear winner. It's difficult. Most people say, I find it difficult. I do my best, but I'm hesitant to ask others for money. And I think regardless of where we are based in the world, this is something that we find difficult. It's a hurdle that we must take. I wish all of us would answer, I love doing fundraising. Whenever I can, wherever I can, I talk about our work because I'm so enthusiastic about it. That's not the case, unfortunately, but it's a dream we have. It would be great if the work that we do is so close to our heart that we inspire others. And we are on a mission to help people anywhere in the world to actually embrace fundraising and engage people in their work. So I think it's time for us to listen to Malo.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Esther. And thanks everyone for participating in the poll. So our amazing tech folks, John and Nico, who have shifted their names to Video Française and English Video or Video English, are going to be sharing their screens. So you'll be able to choose, and I'm going to speak quite slowly so that there's enough time for interpretation to make sure that everybody has access to this. So if you look at your screen right now, you'll be able to go all the way up to the top of the screen. If you bring your cursor over, you'll be able to see view options. And if you click on that arrow, if you go down, there are 2 shared screens right now, Video English, Nico Video English, and Video Française. Please choose whichever one you'd like to start watching in. And in a moment, I'm going to cue my colleagues to start because they're the exact same length and you'll be able to watch them in the language that is most comfortable for you to access. Everybody's got a moment. Hopefully you're all there. All right. And then we're going to start.
Bonjour, bonjour Malo, bienvenue.
Oui, merci. Bonjour Corinne.
Je suis ici avec Malo DB du Burkina Faso et on va parler du Change the Game Academy et de tes expériences comme formateur. Et c'est avec beaucoup de plaisir que je t'ai invité et je suis très très heureuse qu'on peut parler un peu sur comme c'est quelles sont tes expériences comme formateur avec ABF, qui est l'organisation au Burkina qui fait en fait le coaching et la formation du programme. Et avant de parler de ça, peut-être tu peux te parler un peu de toi.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Corinne. Je suis très ravi donc de faire cet entretien ce matin avec vous et de parler donc de nos activités de formation et de coaching à ABF avec les associations. Et comme vous l'avez dit, je m'appelle Malo DB. Je suis formateur certifié en mobilisation de soutien et en mobilisation donc de ressources locales. Effectivement, au Burkina Faso, comme vous le savez, nous avons un ministère en charge donc de réguler les associations au Burkina. Donc, ça fait que toutes les associations aujourd'hui qui se créent ont l'obligation donc d'avoir les documents officiels qui vont marquer leur existence et ils doivent se faire déclarer. Donc, ça fait qu'il y a beaucoup d'associations dans notre pays aujourd'hui, mais qui ont beaucoup de difficultés à pouvoir véritablement travailler parce qu'elles n'ont pas les compétences nécessaires pour pouvoir mener les actions de développement. Et souvent, c'est difficile. On crée les associations, mais malheureusement, sans les compétences, le travail sur le terrain devient très difficile. Et certaines associations finissent même par mourir sans pouvoir même faire de grandes choses.
Merci, merci pour ce contexte.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask Nico, can you please pause the video for a second?
Ça doit être vraiment très difficile.
Sorry, everyone. We were having some trouble with the audio. It sounds like the audio in French was not coming through. And a note as well that the audio for both is in French. The subtitling is available in English, and then there's closed captioning in French. So that's why the audio it's always going to be in French. We didn't do voiceover for all of them. So we're just going to try again. I'm just going to see if they're synced. I'll be just a moment. Okay, it should be all right. Maybe John and Yuko, if you could try again, and then we'll just see how the audio is going.
Bonjour, bonjour Malo, bienvenue.
Oui, merci. Bonjour Corinne.
Je suis ici avec Malo DB du Burkina Faso et on va parler du Change the Game Academy et de tes expériences comme formateur. Et c'est avec beaucoup de plaisir que je t'ai invité et je suis très, très heureuse qu'on peut parler un peu sur comme c'est et quelles sont tes expériences comme formateur avec ABF, qui est l'organisation au Burkina qui fait en fait le coaching et la formation du programme. Et avant de parler de ça, peut-être tu peux te parler un peu de toi.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup, Corinne. Je suis très ravi donc de faire cet entretien ce matin avec vous et de parler donc de nos activités de formation et de coaching à ABF avec les associations. Et comme vous l'avez dit, je m'appelle Malo DB. Je suis formateur certifié en mobilisation de soutien et en mobilisation donc de ressources locales. Effectivement, au Burkina Faso, comme vous le savez, nous avons un ministère en charge donc de réguler les associations au Burkina. Donc, ça fait que toutes les associations aujourd'hui qui se créent ont l'obligation donc d'avoir les documents officiels qui vont marquer leur existence et ils doivent se faire déclarer. Donc, ça fait qu'il y a beaucoup d'associations dans notre pays aujourd'hui, mais qui ont beaucoup de difficultés à pouvoir véritablement travailler parce qu'elles n'ont pas les compétences nécessaires pour pouvoir mener les actions de développement. Et souvent, c'est difficile. On crée les associations, mais malheureusement, sans les compétences, le travail sur le terrain devient très difficile. Et certaines associations finissent même par mourir sans pouvoir même faire de grandes choses.
Merci, merci pour ce contexte. Il y a ceux qui disent, mais ça doit être vraiment très difficile, peut-être impossible, de faire la mobilisation des ressources, la mobilisation de soutien dans un contexte, dans un pays comme Burkina. Qu'est-ce que tu dis à ces gens?
Ok, merci beaucoup Corinne pour cette question très pertinente si vous constatez, j'ai commencé à sourire. Voilà.
Oui.
Bon, c'est normal si des gens sont un peu loin du Burkina et avec notre contexte d'insécurité que nous avons, nous on entend tout, bon, on dit même que le Burkina on ne peut pas vivre, on entend tout ça, mais je puisse vous rassurer qu'au Burkina, on fait bien la mobilisation des ressources, on fait bien la mobilisation des soutiens, on fait les collectes de fonds sans problème, malgré notre contexte difficile. Les
Mhm.
Burkinabés sont résilients à la matière. Et je peux même dire que cette question sécuritaire est venue encore renforcer la compréhension des Burkinabés en matière de s'auto-prendre en charge. Et même le gouvernement aujourd'hui est dans cette dynamique parce qu'ils se sont rendus compte qu'effectivement, il va falloir qu'on cherche des solutions endogènes et sans
Ouais.
cela, ça sera difficile de sortir donc de cette crise que nous vivons aujourd'hui. Dans notre dynamique aujourd'hui, ce sont les communautés qui doivent se prendre en charge. Il ne faut pas attendre des riches plutôt que les communautés elles-mêmes. Nous, aujourd'hui, je prends un exemple chez Ami Debdo où je vivais avant de venir donc à Ouagadougou, à ABF. C'est une communauté, nous on disait avant la formation, ce sont des pauvres, ils n'ont rien pour donner, ils ne peuvent pas collecter des fonds, on ne peut pas réussir la collecte des fonds. Au début, je me disais que ça ne sera pas possible. Et moi-même ici, Lenny m'appelait, monsieur, c'est pas possible.
Mhm.
Mais lorsque nous sommes allés sur le terrain, on a commencé à mettre en pratique les compétences et les connaissances que nous avons apprises. Je me suis rendu compte que je me trompais beaucoup. Il faut s'appuyer beaucoup sur nos manières de faire de façon traditionnelle, comment les communautés se comportent, quelles sont leurs manières même de se soutenir. On s'appuie sur tous ces aspects-là pour amener les communautés effectivement et on se rend compte qu'elles arrivent à apporter beaucoup donc pour la réalisation des initiatives que nous prenons au niveau de nos communautés. On a vu d'abord qu'il faut faire un travail sur le terrain pour préparer les esprits, préparer nos communautés à d'abord se rendre compte que c'est eux-mêmes qui peuvent prendre leur destin en main, c'est eux-mêmes qui peuvent décider de leur développement et la mobilisation de soutien prépare tout ça.
Non.
Puisque nous on joint la pratique à la théorie. Parce que
Ouais.
ce n'est pas une formation théorique seulement nous faisons. C'est
Ouais.
pourquoi dès que nous commençons, on leur dit déjà l'idée de projet qu'ils ont là. Il faut que le projet soit mis en œuvre.
Mhm.
Je prends notre exemple là. Nous, on avait l'idée de projet qu'on était venu à ABF quand on nous formait.
Mhm.
C'était la construction de la médiathèque.
Mhm.
Et aujourd'hui, les gens se demandent, quand ils viennent, mais comment vous avez fait et puis vous avez eu ça là, dans un petit village comme ça. Tout le monde est étonné. Même
Ouais.
les autorités administratives sont étonnées qu'on a pu
Mhm.
réaliser un tel rêve dans un petit village comme Midebdo.
Ouais.
Et ça nous galvanise.
Ouais.
Ça témoigne donc qu'effectivement, les changements, là, tant que nous avons les outils, les capacités nécessaires, nous pouvons y arriver.
Ouais.
Au début, nous-mêmes, on se disait que ce n'est pas évident qu'on puisse faire la collecte au niveau local. Ce n'est pas
Mhm.
évident qu'on puisse avoir le soutien dont on a besoin. Mais au fur et à mesure, c'est ce que nous disons lorsque nous formons la structure. Tout part de la confiance que les
Mhm.
gens ont envers nous, les associations que nous formons. C'est pourquoi nous leur disons qu'eux-mêmes, ils doivent respecter les 5 principes du CLAPS. Je sais que vous connaissez les outils, parce que
Oui,
ce sont
oui.
des principes qui vont permettre d'abord même, nous-mêmes en tant qu'organisation, nous-mêmes en tant que leaders de ces associations, d'être légitimes d'abord. J'ai dit aux gens, chaque fois lorsque nous formons, dans les communautés, on vous regarde. Votre manière de marcher, votre manière de faire, comment vous vivez avec les populations. Est-ce que quand les gens ont des difficultés, vous êtes là? Est-ce que quand les gens ont des activités, vous êtes là? Il y a un certain nombre de comportements qu'il faut respecter. La crédibilité, la transparence, pour que la confiance s'installe, pour que la légitimité s'installe. Et s'ils font toutes ces questions-là et ils ajoutent la redevabilité, nous pensons qu'ils peuvent réussir l'ensemble des actions. Parce que les preuves, nous les avons. Et beaucoup de structures qui arrivent donc à respecter cela, ils s'en sortent très bien. Et ça fonctionne très bien sur le terrain, je vous dis, Corinne. Qu'ils soient au Burkina ou à l'extérieur, aujourd'hui, nous sommes dans une dynamique où nous voulons que les communautés s'affirment. Et pour que ces communautés s'affirment aujourd'hui et prennent leur destin en main, nous avons des outils à travers Change the Game Academy que nous voyons comme le chemin qu'il faut suivre pour un véritable développement local, un développement endogène assuré. Et aujourd'hui, les preuves, nous en avons partout un peu au Burkina. S'il y a quelqu'un qui souhaiterait venir voir les preuves de ce que nous faisons, on a des résultats un peu partout, visibles, qu'on peut aller montrer du doigt. Voilà comment, et puis ces associations vont démontrer comment ils ont fait pour réaliser ça. Et c'est de façon incroyable. On réalise des rêves que nous-mêmes, on ne pensait pas que c'était réalisable.
Yes, thank you very much, Malo, for sharing this. And for me, what really stands out of this video is what you underline is that it is a change of mindset within communities that you see happening. People not waiting for others to make changes, but taking their destiny into their own hands. And that's, you said it a couple of times, and I think that is really inspiring. I think, I'm not sure if we can see Malo, perhaps you can give us a wave. We'll come back to you and hear more from you later. Yeah, there you are. But before we do so, there's a second video, a second interview with someone from Burkina Faso. It's someone who attended Change the Game Academy trainings, went back to her work and actually started implementing what she learned in the trainings. Big welcome to Françoise Koulibaly, and she is part of the l'association Yirikan. And Yirikan actually means the voice of the tree. And Corinne also discussed with her about local fundraising.
Right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have the
Oui,
two screens shared. Bonjour Françoise.
Oui, bonjour.
Oui, bonjour. Nous allons partager votre entrevue en ce moment et après on aura la chance de vous
Françoise, we're going to share your interview first, and we'll bring you on mic afterwards to share some questions.
We're going to now have the two options to view the screens, and a reminder that we will be sharing the links. We won't actually be sharing these videos, the links to these videos directly, but we are recording the whole event, so you will have access to the video within the event if you would like to access it later. So you can go to your top of the screen and decide which video you would like to watch. All right, give everybody a moment to get to the right video and the right screen. All right, excellent. And then we're going to try to launch them in sync. Thank you again for your understanding with the technical challenges. It always takes a moment. All right, and then we'll sync them up now.
Je suis Françoise Koulibaly de l'association Yirikan. Yirikan qui est en langue djoula chez nous, qui veut dire la voix de la forêt. Et nous sommes basés à Boromo. Boromo, c'est une ville à 180 km environ de la capitale qui est Ouagadougou. Et je suis la chargée de projet de l'association. Mon association, son objectif, c'est de restaurer d'abord et préserver la forêt des deux vallées, qui est un parc national dans la zone chez nous, voilà, qui est grande de 80 600 km², donc 80 600 hectares. Voilà, que fait le parc. Avec beaucoup de pression humaine, je vais dire déjà, c'est vrai qu'il y a les effets naturels qui sont là, mais la pression humaine à travers l'orpaillage, la coupe abusée du bois, la divagation des animaux, tout ça, c'est un peu des actions humaines qui font qu'aujourd'hui, on n'a presque plus de forêt. Nous n'avons laissé personne hors de notre programme. Nous allons des plus petits aux adultes. Les plus petits, nous faisons de l'éducation environnementale. Ça veut dire qu'à l'école, on passe de temps en temps sensibiliser les enfants sur des actions à ne pas mener, le jet des sachets plastiques, la coupe des arbres et autres. Même le reboisement, tout ça, on accompagne les plus petits dans les écoles pour le faire. Et les jeunes aussi, je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, nous faisons des formations. Nous les formons à sensibiliser plutôt, puisque c'est la jeune génération, ce sont eux qui sont appelés à monter et à diriger. Par rapport aux adultes, nous nous déplaçons dans les villages riverains du parc où nous projetons des films, déjà même des sensibilisations à travers le théâtre aussi, des théâtres forums qu'on fait. Voilà. On a même une troupe à Boromo qui a fait une nouvelle création par rapport à ce sujet-là. Voilà. Donc, c'est un peu ce qu'on fait. Voilà, au départ, bon, je ne dirais pas que j'ai pensé que c'était inutile parce que j'ai eu l'impression que c'est des choses que je faisais, mais ce n'était pas poussé. Et surtout la technique. Et je vais commencer par la mobilisation de soutien. Mais là, avec l'expérience que nous avons vécue, c'est très important d'avoir le soutien moral. Ce n'est pas les ressources financières d'abord. Parce que je me dis que si tu es accompagné moralement, forcément, le reste, ça vient. Tant que la personne a la possibilité de le faire, je pense qu'elle va le faire. Et ça a été une très belle expérience pour moi de présenter déjà le projet comme ça. En tout cas, personnellement, j'ai compris que j'étais sur la bonne voie. Et c'était vraiment une très belle expérience. Là, tu ne te sens pas seul dans la chose. Tu sens que tu as du monde derrière toi. Ça, c'est motivant. Et
Oui, très motivant.
Oui, c'est très motivant. Ça facilitait beaucoup de choses après. Ça nourrit la confiance en soi d'abord, mais la confiance que les autres aussi ont en toi, ça nourrit ces deux confiances-là. Et ça t'amène quand même à faire l'impossible pour atteindre ton objectif. Voilà. Et ce que j'ai appris pendant les cours, c'est la technique déjà d'aller vers les gens. C'est vrai que peut-être que j'ai le contact facile, mais pour ce genre de choses, il faut vraiment une démarche assez méthodique pour avoir les résultats escomptés. Et ça, je l'ai eu pendant les cours avec ABF, voilà, avec le programme Change the Game Academy. On a fait une activité de collecte de ressources sur un budget de 24 millions. Et pour ça, nous avons pu mobiliser un peu plus de 10 millions.
Wow.
C'est vrai qu'on n'a pas atteint ce qu'on voulait, mais c'était déjà bon pour une première fois. C'était déjà bon.
Exactement.
Et je me dis qu'en plus de ce qu'on a pu mobiliser avec la confiance que les gens ont eue, parce qu'ils ont constaté les activités, se sont bien mêlées, tout ça, et les gens ont compris que la communauté en avait besoin. Et on se dit que pour les éditions à venir, ça va être un peu plus. Ça donne de la confiance, ça donne de l'espoir aussi. Mais peut-être l'erreur que certains font, c'est que, bon, on est souvent axé sur l'argent, comment on dit, l'espèce en l'argent en espèce sonnante et trébuchante. Non, pas forcément. On peut avoir besoin peut-être, je vais prendre l'exemple d'une sonorisation. On n'a pas besoin forcément de prendre l'argent de la location de la sonorisation. On peut demander à la personne de nous offrir ça, pourquoi pas. Ce que j'apprécie beaucoup dans ce programme, non seulement les connaissances partagées au moment des cours sont parties d'expériences concrètes. C'est un. Et c'est vraiment des échanges. Des échanges basés sur, je vais dire, les réalités locales. On ne calque pas une expérience ou bien une réalité de l'Europe ou bien, je sais pas, je sais pas où, et puis on vient nous plaquer pour qu'on suive. Non. c'est nos réalités, c'est local, c'est vraiment local. Et ça fait que en tout cas, on accepte ça facilement. Moi, je pense qu'ils doivent savoir que c'est possible. C'est possible de faire de grandes choses avec de petits moyens de bord. Parce que sans le savoir, on a tout.
Beautiful, Françoise. Thank you for ending with that. Without knowing it, we have all we need, and we have so much at our disposal. Merci beaucoup, Françoise. Before we go over to Malo and Françoise, I'd just like to underline again that the experience from Burkina Faso also demonstrates, and Nico, perhaps you can share the slides, those two very important learnings that we've learned over the past years. And that is that raising resources is possible everywhere. So nobody is too poor to give. People can contribute in their own way with their own means and become involved in a change process. And it's not about only the money, it's also about ownership. It's about the community pride of people having trust in their own capacities, trust in the future, of being proud of what they achieved together, and building a credible, legitimate organization. So I really hope that this will inspire you to also start reflecting on this. And we saw in the poll that fundraising is not easy. So we all find it, most of us find it a little bit difficult. But I think what Françoise shared also is being creative, thinking of what you need to do your work. And instead of hiring sounding machine or the devices that you need for your events, you may as well ask a company if they are willing to give it to you for free. And so there's so many ways in which you can be creative and mobilize the resources you need to achieve the results you'd like to see. And I think what we always say in our trainings is dare to ask, really be courageous and just ask people, because people give because someone asked them to do it, or most people do. And I think it's really important that we first win over people's hearts, and then they will become inspired and they want to be part of your work, of what you're doing. And then the resources and the contributions will follow. And I think that applies to no matter where we are, to all of our contexts. So thank you very much for this. And we're very happy that you're here with us today, Malo and Françoise. Welcome, soyez les bienvenus. Bonjour, bonsoir, je pense pour vous. It would be great to see if there's questions in the group for either of you or both of you. So if you have a question, feel free to raise your hands or post them in the chat. And we can hear more from Malo and Françoise. Yes, Leah, first I see your hands. Please feel free to share your question.
Yeah, I'll just check my sound. You can hear me. Maybe someone can nod. Yeah, well, I guess maybe for both of you, I guess, what are you most proud of in your fundraising, local fundraising journey?
Busy like
So I don't know if Françoise wants to take first and then Malo, or vice versa. Maybe Françoise, what do you, and maybe just wait for interpretation.
Yeah, go ahead, Françoise.
Si vous me permettez. Ah, ok.
Alors, moi, je vais dire que je n'ai pas vraiment.
So I'd like to say that I don't really have to choose what I'm proud of, because there's so many things. the whole trajectory I'm very proud of. But I can definitely say I'm proud that everyone is behind our organization. And I think this is really thanks to the training that I received at ABF. As I said, as long as you have support and you've won the hearts and minds of people, like donations and contributions will follow. I'm very proud of that. And today we are very well respected. Our organization is highly revered. And like I said, this is thanks to the work that we did from the training that we got from ABF. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Françoise, thank you. Malo, please add.
Okay, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that we are sharing our experiences connected to our training, thanks to the academy. As Françoise said, each one of us has ambitions and has plans and concerns. And today, when we have preoccupations, we don't know who to talk to. And at some point, you realize, no, we have to stand up. We have to fight to overcome these challenges that we have. And you're not even sure that you're going to manage to overcome these challenges sometimes. But when you succeed, it really leaves a mark on you. And I think that through our experience, what we've learned is to know that convincing yourself that you can do it after having tested the experience, it's an amazing feeling. And it can be multiple years that we've been waiting for others to do these things for us. And in a fraction of the time, we tried it and we stood up and we did it ourselves. That's the greatest satisfaction that a community can get. So obviously, I'm very proud of this. And today with the academy, what we said during our trainings is that everything starts from the needs of the community. If you don't take into account the needs of the academy, you'll struggle. If you choose the wrong points of focus, you will not get the support of the community. So we always say when a community is facing a challenge, you have to be with the community. You have to communicate with them to really understand the challenging issues and the real problems that they face. And if you're sincerely interacting with them and you help them overcome it, you'll know that you've been useful to the community. And that will really make you proud. Every morning, we can see the changes that we've made. And so we sleep easy at night. We feel really good. I think every human being should have this kind of conviction and this kind of belief. It's incredibly empowering, the kind of experience that we have had. And that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much, Malo. I don't see any question yet in the chat. Is there anyone else who'd like to pose a question here? There's a question. A question for Françoise
and Malo. Which means do you use to gather donations and funds for your projects?
Oui, il n'y a pas de problème.
Yes, gladly. So generally, we meet people and we do lobbying and advocacy for our causes. When we can gather many people together in one meeting, we generally aim for this. And we also sometimes go from door to door. Those are our main strategies for collecting funds. We also inquire with businesses and individuals who are not afraid to do the work alongside us. So far, we've been very successful, and thanks to our focus, like Malo said, the issues that we choose to focus on, it really speaks to people and they rally behind us.
Merci, Françoise. Thank you. Malo?
Ok, merci bien. Je pense que si j'ai bien compris.
Thank you. I think if I understood the question, it's how do we go about getting people to contribute to fundraising?
Ok.
Oui, c'est ça.
D'accord, merci bien. Et c'est comme on l'a dit.
So, as we said, nothing has ever been easy at the beginning of any project. When you start collecting funds, when you start making an association, it's always challenging. And back in the day, they used to call me Mr. This is not possible because I was quite pessimistic. And today, I'm a trainer myself. So the way we went about collecting funds, I think that our training modules are made so that we have everything that we need to be successful at fundraising. As my colleague said, first thing you need is popular support. The community has to be behind you. That's the first thing. If you have the support of the community, they all understand that the problem you want to solve is of utmost importance to the community. They will not hesitate to make a contribution, whatever size that contribution can be. I'll give an example. In a village that we call Kiafandwa, in a small township about 500 kilometers away from the capital, there was a serious water problem in this village. And people would go to dig in the underground to create their own wells. And before I became trained, I would go see them and say, here's how we can help you dig these boreholes to get water. We were asking, what can we do ourselves? And because it was a real problem in the village, they didn't wait. As soon as we started talking to them, they were really interested in finding a solution because they had waited for a long time for the government, the municipality to do things, but nothing was being done. So they started collecting funds, 3,000 francs here, 3,000 francs here, and even people were giving chickens. And, the amounts that we were asking for was not even worth equivalent to the value of the chicken, but they would give chickens because they had chickens. And we knew that together we were going to be able to mobilize the resources, and we were able to. And today, those people are very proud of what they did because they actually participated in solving the problem. And multiple years later, they are continuing to fundraise. And they're even today collecting funds in case there should be an issue with the well. They want to be ready with the funds to maintain it or to repair it. So it was a transformative experience for them. As I said, making sure that the issue that you're addressing is of utmost importance to them is crucial to getting funds. You have to make sure to communicate accurately with them and to choose issues that they need addressed. And this should be reflected in all communications. And I think the population needs to be able to trust you as well, so that they understand that they are the ones that you are mobilizing resources for. These communities, at any given point, they will be able to say, you should also donate. They can tell their neighbors and friends, because they understand that they can trust you and that it's going to a good cause. As soon as people are in agreement with you, and as soon as the stakeholders, the beneficiaries, are involved in the process, it really facilitates fundraising. You will see individual donors or business practitioners who might donate. The fact that you bring one of those people, one member of that organization or one member of that business, just doing that and bringing that one person can really help to solidify the engagement from one of these organizations. So leveraging the individual to get the organizational commitment is also important. If you do not manage to get these basic circumstances on your side in the right manner, you will struggle. Those are my recommendations for fundraising. I think using all of these perspectives and perspectives together really helps with leading a successful fundraising. And it will have a knock-on effect, because like I said, when they see the result of their work, it will continue. I can give another example. There's a person who has a disability, and we trained this person. They included in their resource mobilization plan that they were going to meet with one of the largest operators of Burkina Faso. So this person put that person in the plan, and we were wondering, how are they going to meet with this person to talk about their ideas and their plan? And instead of telling this person it wasn't realistic, we told them, yes, this is great. You have to be audacious. You have to be brave. And we found out later that this entrepreneur left their commitments and put aside multiple meetings to meet this person who was living with a disability. And when this person finished explaining their project, the entrepreneur put down 500,000 francs to begin mobilizing resources. And he went to see himself on the ground to see what resources needed to be mobilized and what the challenges were. And so I think what that example shows us is that you have to dare to ask. You have to be brave and you have to be bold. It's not because you have something to ask for. It's not because somebody is very wealthy or is inaccessible to you that you should not try. And I think this is something that we learned in our training as well. And I think I will stop it there. I've spoken quite a lot. Thank you so much for listening.
And thank you for sharing all this all these experiences and insights. I saw a question, and I think we can combine two questions and ask Françoise to respond to them. The first one was whether you could provide an example of the awareness raising you conducted through theater. And the second question is, do you build connections and relationships with local community leaders, schools, maybe religious organizations, elders, etc., to make fundraising successful? Is that part of your strategy? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Je peux?
Can I go?
Oui, allez-y.
Of course, go ahead.
Are you still here, Françoise? I think there's a small connection issue with Françoise.
Oui, je suis là.
Oh.
On m'entend maintenant?
I'm here. Can you hear me now? Yes, go ahead. You can hear me? Okay, great. So, of course, we do have relationships with all of these people and resources. That's also why we mobilize for support. And it's been a huge help. The projects are putting emphasis on the communities, but if they don't hold enough knowledge on the local situation and on the project, or if they aren't aware of how they could contribute to the project, I think it makes for difficult participation. So I feel like we really have to make a commitment with these people to make sure they understand what's the nature of the program, who can benefit from it. We felt like it was very important to present the project to the community. Seeing some students or teachers didn't have any money to give, at least they could help work as a bridge or as a messenger between us and the local organizations. So with time and trust building, we can have a collaborative relationship with these people who become a partner and a resource for our organizations. So they don't have to be a member, but we consider them volunteers that are ready to accompany us no matter what happens, because they feel like they are part of the project, they feel interested, and they know that they're benefiting directly from it. So that's what I can say from now.
Super. Thank you very much, Françoise. I think in the interest of time, we will. Oh, Malo, do you still want to say? Can you?
Ok.
Keep it short?
Je serai un peu bref.
I will try to make it short. Thank you for this concern about our contact with local authorities or different networks. They are essential in starting any campaign of resource mobilization. And so the first contact is always with them, because they are resources in our different communities, and they can help us transfer the information to their surroundings, their communities. And so if you start an action without involving them, of course, it's as though you're trying to go into your field. There's only one road there. And so you either go into the forest and risk having an encounter with a wild animal. And so these people will diffuse the message in the mosques, in the communities, and the families, and we have to be able to track their communications. Don't neglect anybody. Every cultural legal, every political leader has to be involved, has to be participating, and they will facilitate that link with the local community. And so these leaders are a huge part of our mobilization efforts. And that's what I can say about that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Malo. Last addition from Françoise before we wrap up.
Alors, moi, ce que je voudrais ajouter, que c'est vrai que la clé, ce sont les bénéficiaires. Mais après, on arrive à mobiliser des ressources pour
Madame Kouliabi's internet street is unequal.
Au profit des communautés. Après l'entretien, le suivi, tout dépend d'eux.
Apologies. The sound streaming from Madame Kouliabi is not sufficient for interpretation.
I think the connection broke with Françoise, unfortunately.
Ma connexion balance un peu. Alors donc, je disais que ces personnes-là, s'ils ne sont pas impliqués directement dans la mise en œuvre, dans le processus de mise en œuvre des projets,
the local actors aren't directly involved at the start of the project, they won't feel a part of it. And that leads to a risk that the project doesn't even take off the ground or doesn't benefit the community as we intended to. But when they are involved, it's gonna make it easier to keep the knowledge and skills on the local grounds. There was energy, money, and time invested to make the project happen. And so they will be ready to really get invested to uphold and save this project when they can understand how it will benefit them.
And a big thank you to Malo and Françoise for joining us today, for taking time for the interview, being here with us today and sharing about your experience, which I find very inspiring. And I know the context in Burkina is very challenging at the moment, and yet you are able to make such wonderful changes in this context and actually mobilize people to support your work. Thank you very much. And the name Change the Game Academy was mentioned a couple of times. Nico, perhaps it's possible to share the slide on where you can find more information about Change the Game Academy. As we said, it's a capacity strengthening program, and you will find us on changethegameacademy.org. You find e-learning there, which is accessible free of charge, because we're very passionate of sharing this knowledge and these learnings. A fundraising app is available that you can download on your phone and use offline also. And in addition to the online resources, the training and coaching trajectories are available in 15 countries, both on local fundraising, but also on lobby and advocacy. And today we've spoken about local fundraising, but we also offer training on mobilizing support, we call that. So support from local governments and duty bearers. These courses which are in person are not free of charge, because you can imagine that this requires a cost investment. However, if you'd like to learn more, we will reach out to you after this webinar. We're happy to share more information, but you can also find it online. And I think Françoise mentioned it. What we find very important is to tailor the courses and the materials to the different contexts in the different countries, so that if you take part in a course, that you hear examples from your own context that you can relate to and that really can inspire you. So that's integrated in the trainings, but online there's lots of examples that you can find about successful fundraising initiatives in various countries. And that will hopefully inspire you also and trigger your thoughts on how you can actually start this journey or continue this journey if you're doing this already. Before we close off, we'd be very interested to hear from you and to ask you, what was it that stood out for you today? What is the main takeaway? What is something that you'd like to take with you or that you'd like to start doing? And we have a Jamboard for that, in which we can put a digital post-it note. Unfortunately, we're not in a room together where we can write a post-it and just walk over to the wall and paste it there. But there's an online wall, and it would be really nice if you would post something there. I think the link will be shared in the chat, or do you want me to do it? Yeah, the link is in the chat.
Included it here, yeah.
So you can click on the link. And on the left side, if you click on the icon somewhere in the middle, which looks like a post-it, you'll be able to write something and put it somewhere up there. It'll take a few minutes.
Oh, apologies. To answer the question that has just popped up in the chat, we actually didn't put people into different groups because we thought that it would take too long considering the amount of time we had remaining. So apologies for the lack of clarity on that. So if you can just fill out group 1, the first Jamboard, if it starts to get too full, you can hop over to the other page. Thank you so much for that question to clarify that. So yeah, you can fill out your ideas, your main takeaways of today's session on that group 1 Jamboard. Yeah, we had foreseen maybe some breakout room time. Then we had such a wonderful question and answer period that went a little bit longer. So we thought we'd hold more time for that. Thank you so much for asking.
I see a lot of post-its are being put on a Jamboard about that. It was inspiring to hear from the experiences in Burkina Faso, to hear about the community engagements through local fundraising, the encouragement to be creative when raising funds. Nobody is too poor to give, especially when the solution is benefiting the community. The potential is amazing. I love seeing the post-its. And I think a lot was shared that we can all continue to reflect on. Rachel already mentioned this, but the recording of the session will be shared by email with all of you. And we will also share links to the resources that were mentioned here, as well as a very short follow-up survey. It would be really great to hear your feedback on this session. So from my end, a very warm thank you for joining us today, to take time and be here and be inspired by the experiences from Burkina Faso. Thank you very much for that. And I'll hand over to Rachel.
Oh, thank you again so much, Esther, Françoise, Malo, and all of you for being here today to join us in this conversation. The Change the Game Academy calls these inspiration webinars. And I think after hearing about Françoise and Malo's experiences, we can tell why, because they're really inspiring. And when we look at the takeaways, it's incredible what we can do. And I think it's a wonderful reminder about the power of community and the power and importance of our work when it is truly community-centered. So thank you so much for these beautiful reminders of how to do good work in a good way. I wanted to say thank you again to everybody for being here today, to Nico and John for their amazing tech support throughout this. And I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't say thank you to everyone who helped from the outset in building our course, Building Equity Resource Mobilization for Impact, of course, which you can still access on the Spur Change Resource Library, which was a project that was based on the work of Change the Game Academy, but where we came together with Jay and Clark. Where we were able to put together this amazing Canadian context and Canadian supplement to the Change the Game Academy content. I would also remind folks that there's an exciting opportunity. You can access all of the Change the Game Academy content online. It's all free to be able to access, but there are in-person learning opportunities as well. I think we did share a link to some of the upcoming classroom courses, but if you want to learn more and engage with them, Esther and her team and everyone at Change the Game Academy is available to connect with as well to learn more about those extended opportunities. Again, a huge thank you to everyone for being here, for sharing of yourselves, and joining us on this ongoing journey to continue to do our good work in this way. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful rest of the day. Thank you again for joining us. Take care, everybody.